what makes somebody good at what they do is that they screwed up in their life. I talk about the mistakes because everybody goes and talks about all the great things they did. I
Hmm.
think you learn more from the mistakes, right? And how you
Oh,
rebound.
absolutely.
Whenever you have more of anything, and this includes money, the price is going to go down. At your funeral, what are people
Yeah.
going to say about you?
Impactful challenge that you would like to share with us that we can all learn from.
How many 5'10" Italian guys do you see in the NBA? It ain't going to
Very
work.
stubborn with resilience, but in a positive way, right? Just to show them, like,
The trilogy to me, Griselda, is
hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Excellence Journeys. Today, I am delighted to bring a very special guest to you, a good friend of mine, someone that I've gone to know recently, but have become quite close as we're in the same line of work. His name is Mark Deluzio, and I'm going to aim to get a little bit of background on Mark's bio, but of course, I'll ask Mark to really provide a lot more detail himself. But most recently, actually, I do know, and I've read it, the Flatline books. So, author of books. He is also in charge, founded Lean Horizons. Sorry about that. But Lean Horizons is a very popular and international consultancy that is doing extremely well. So, I know Mark loves going around the world and helping people with their lean transformation journeys and making their businesses profitable. So, a lot more that Mark will share with us on that. Um, Also, a patriot, near and dear to my heart. There's a lot that he and I chat about patriotism. He's going to share a little bit of that story, I think, and some of the personal challenges that he's had within his own personal life. But anyway, lean pioneer, architect, primary architect, I should say, of the Danaher business system. And without further ado, I introduce to you Mark Deluzio. Hello, Mark.
boy, that makes me sound so old.
Not old. You're young at heart, my man. Young all around, but especially at heart.
Good to
It's
be with
great.
you. Thank you, my friend.
Mhm. Yeah. So Mark, welcome to the show. Excellence Journeys is really to talk about your journey of how you traverse not only the triumphs but also challenges. Right? We all go through those lessons learned, but there's a lot of triumphs that we can learn from Mark. There's a lot of tribulations. There's lessons learned, and so this podcast is really about sharing those stories, learning from Mark, and any advice and tidbits that you'd like to share. It's just so much that I know you've shared with me in the short time that I've known you, but I've learned a lot from you, and I keep learning, right? And I know others as
Likewise, by the
well.
way.
Others as well. I hear my friends talk about working with Mark or listening to some of his impactful stories as you storytell, as you lean coach out there. But anyway, so we all learn from you. So this is what it's about. So
Well, yeah, I think you and I talked about this, but uh, what makes somebody good at what they do is that they screwed up in their life.
yeah. Hmm.
They made a lot of mistakes. Matter of fact, when if I get asked a question by a potential client, hey, how come we should hire you? It's because I made more mistakes than you.
There you go.
And lean is not intuitive, and you will make the same mistakes. And,
Yeah.
and my job is to make sure you don't make those mistakes, at
Mhm.
least as best I can.
Right.
And I may let you make a couple mistakes. That's really good learning, as long as it doesn't really hurt you. But I think we've all made mistakes. We've all learned, and that's what I think builds. Tacit knowledge, right? In terms of except as opposed to explicit knowledge that you can get
Yeah.
out of a book or out of a video or whatever. The tacit knowledge is how would you handle that situation? How do you
Mhm.
calculate tack time? I remember when I first started at Danaher, and I was,
Yeah.
1987 is when I started my first entree into lean when we brought
Okay.
Shingijutsu here. We were the first ones to bring them over at Jake Break. And at the
Mm.
time, I was in a finance role.
Uh-huh.
And long story short, I went to Japan. George Koenigsegg and Art Burns sent me to Japan on the first study mission of many that I've done.
Uh-huh.
And when I came back, George Sherman, our CEO at the time, who I worked for almost a decade, he was
Okay.
phenomenal. God rest his soul. Um, he said, "What do you want to do?" Because I promoted to CFO. I'd invented now what we call lean accounting,
Right.
and I was CFO. And I said, "Geez, George, I went to Japan and got involved in lean and all this. We didn't call it lean back then."
Hmm.
I want to get an operation. So before I know it, I was running our Asian business. I was the general
Oh,
manager
there
of
you
that and
go.
running that whole
Nice.
thing. And I had Hino Motors, part of Toyota, as my client, right? And
Wow.
which was really cool. And we did the first 3P line in the U.S. with Chihiro Nakao from Shingijutsu, who's the father of moonshine. So
Yes.
I've fallen into this great experience. I was just lucky, right?
Yeah.
And so George then comes to me and says, Mark, because Jake Brake made so many great improvements over like 2 or 3 years.
Hmm.
He said, Mark, I want you to come work for me and do for Danaher what you did for Jake Brake.
No,
And that was my marching orders for DBS, and we didn't call it DBS right away. We called it DPS, Danaher Production System.
production system. I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
we changed it. We changed it to business system, and we thought we knew what we were doing back then when we did that, because we knew
Hmm.
there was waste in in functions.
Yeah.
But what we didn't know until I put policy deployment in, which I now today call strategy deployment, is that the functions have to work in unison together. You can't. I really do believe that if you try to optimize one function, you will sub-optimize the organization.
Clearly.
Okay,
Yeah. I've
they
seen
got to
that
work
happen.
together in concert, right? And that's what strategy deployment's all about in terms of multifunctional teams and all that.
Right.
Anyway, that gave rise to the Danaher Business System, and I remember after I got the job working for George, I became a
Yeah.
corporate officer
Hmm.
at a young age, and I went down to Gastonia, North Carolina. Now, Jake Brake, if anybody knows Jake Brake, it's pretty classical, one-piece flow cells,
Yep.
dedicated customers, OEMs, and all this stuff. We had
Uh-huh.
components that had the cells and all that.
Coming into the
And,
line.
things like tack time was not, it was pretty easy to kind of figure out. Well, first of all, we had set schedules from
Hmm.
our OEM customers, and, So I went down to Gastonia, North Carolina, not too far from where I'm sitting right now,
Yes, I know. Hmm.
because I just moved to North Carolina, as you know.
Hmm.
And they made 1 million sockets a day for Sears Craftsman hand tools.
Okay.
And one of the questions I got asked almost like right away, and I'm walking in there thinking I know everything, right? They said, "Hey, how do you calculate tack time for a factory that makes 1 million sockets a day? I mean, you're going to go out like 500 decimal points, right?" And it blew me away. It like, oh my God,
What?
I don't know. And I wasn't even thinking you got to do it by the work area, not by the whole plant. The plant number is
Yes.
really not relevant.
Right.
But it let me, it was a shocker for me, Griselda, because it said to me, you don't know crap, okay?
Hmm.
you, you think you know a lot and you don't. And I still feel that way. I still feel that way. As we get older, when I'm 20, I knew everything, right? I'm sure you
Oh,
did
of
too.
course. Yeah, yeah.
I
You
mean, you were
double your
brilliant
knowledge
at
on.
20, and I'm sure you were, but
I have a 23-year-old. She knows
oh, there
everything.
you go. There you go. And if you don't believe me, just ask her, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But as you get older, I just had my 68th birthday, and my wife says, "How come you're still doing this?" Because I just love doing this. I love teaching people, and I made a commitment to
Right.
my sensei Nakao that I would continue teaching
Mhm.
the purity of you hear me talk about basics on LinkedIn all the time, the
Right.
purity of lean, and so when you start looking at the whole notion of learning,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lifelong endeavor. And I had the opportunity in my career to work very briefly with Dr. Joseph Duran. He was
Oh, okay.
89 years old. Well, I had called him to speak at one of our conferences, and
Mm-hmm.
I got his assistant, and I sent in this really pathetic brochure of DBS that we did. Danaher wasn't big on fanfare back then.
Non-marketing, right? It was just getting
Oh my
results. I
God, it was
remember in the early
pathetic. I wish
days.
I still had a copy of it. That's a poor, great cover.
Uh-huh.
And I
Mm-hmm.
sent him that. And 2 weeks later, he calls me. Well, actually, I was in a conference, in a
Mm-hmm.
meeting, and my executive assistant, she came in and said, "Mark, your doctor's on the phone."
Mm.
And I go, "Oh my God, what happened to my wife, my kids, whatever." It was Dr. Duran.
Oh,
And we
your
spent
doctor.
close to an hour on the phone talking about this stupid brochure I gave him. He was intrigued with DBS,
No way.
policy, in particular policy deployment. And he
Wow.
asked questions at 89 years old like he was a kid in a candy store. He was so curious. I
Oh
mean, I
my
wrote a
goodness.
poem about him. I'll have to send it to you. But he, he,
Yeah.
he was unbelievably curious about this. Then he said to me, Mark, I'm not. speaking at conferences anymore. I'm 89. I'm writing my memoirs. You know, he died at age 104, I think, something
Yeah,
like that.
they're triple
Over 100
digit.
years old.
Sure.
And he said, but if you, I'm doing my farewell tour and we're doing one in Cromwell, Connecticut. And if you come to that, I'll make sure you and I have lunch. Oh, yeah, yeah,
Great.
right. Okay.
Nice.
So I go to the thing. There's 400 people at this conference.
Uh-huh.
I bring 8 of my guys with me and gals. And uh, I met him in the restroom, but I didn't tell him who I was. And he comes
Hmm.
in with his little tuxedo, right?
Okay.
And I'm standing next to him in the urinal. This may be a little bit graphic here, but and he looks at me and he says, "You know, I still get nervous doing these things. I've been doing these things for 70 years, and I still get nervous at these
No
things."
way.
So I got
Amazing.
the one of the best, unbelievable quality gurus in the world taking a leak with me, okay,
And gets
telling me how
nervous when he's on stage.
and telling a stranger how nervous he is, okay. That's
Wow.
Duran. That's Duran. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I didn't tell him who I was. So I said, let's see if he remembers about the lunch. Because he didn't know. We just talked on the phone. So he didn't know what it looked
Yeah.
like. Anyway, he just thing in the morning. He had a great presentation. And at lunchtime, Joe DeFeo, who became the CEO
Mm-hmm.
and I'm good friends with him, went to the same school together.
Okay.
Joe DeFeo comes up to me. I didn't know Joe at the time. He goes, Mark Deluzio? He goes, yeah, Dr. Duran would like to have lunch with you. So he remembered.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it was incredible, you know. And all my guys that were with me, like, hey, how do you, Ray? What's going on, you know?
Yeah. How are you rubbing over elbows over there? Very
But
cool.
anyway, that's the start of DBS and what we're trying to do and all
Yeah.
that. And we made a lot of mistakes. You know, I have a presentation called Humble Errors that I talk about the mistakes because everybody goes and talks about all the great things they did. I
Mm-hmm.
think you learn more from the mistakes, right? And how you
Oh,
rebound.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
So,
And I think a lot of it is that pain point, right? I mean, you make a mistake, you feel like you failed your team, but really you're all learning. They're learning, you're learning as their leader, as their coach, as
right.
their guide. But Duran, right? Lifelong learner at 89, 90, probably up to 100. One thing I remember learning is just you keep on learning and you fail fast, pick up and go, right? That's
Picking up
one
is a
thing.
big deal. Big
Hmm.
deal. We're all going to have setbacks in our life, whether, personal or professional. And it's what
Hmm.
you do with it that really matters. You know, we're all going to
Right.
be, and so I think that's something that you just have to have that resilience to keep
Hmm.
moving forward, keep pushing the
Yep.
ball forward, and keep going.
Yep.
And yeah, 89, he was like I said, curious as you can imagine. So
Yep, yep. And I know you and I, we keep learning and challenging each other for that thirst for
yep.
knowledge and learning and immersing, right? Rolling up your sleeves and immersing. Now you mentioned a couple things. One of them, and obviously an expert in this, because you're a finance guru, right? Whenever I'm trying to calculate savings or get ideas, I read your books, I see your posts, and I'm like, how would Mark do it? But lean accounting and or lean in finance, however you want to capture that whole essence of
Mhm.
how do we know if we're moving the needle? How do we know it's making an impact for the business? And I think you've mastered that with some simple metrics that you've put out there for us to really embrace and use.
Well, the one I like, Griselda, is free cash flow as a percent of net income. Why do I like that?
Hmm.
Because free cash flow, it's all about cash, number one, driving
Yep.
cash. And if you really think about your stock value, theoretically anyway, your stock value is the present value of all your future cash flows, right?
Yep.
Um, and so driving cash is like a real big deal. And why I like free cash flow as a percent of net income. And by the way, if anybody wants to email me at mark.deluzio at leanhorizons.com, I'll send you the calculation.
Great.
Um, but it not only covers your profitability, your cash profits, what people call EBITDA, but it also covers the changes in your working capital accounts, which are your inventory, your accounts receivable, and accounts payable.
Yeah.
And that's your working capital. And also talks about CapEx, the capital expenditure. So those things are embedded in this calculation, okay?
Yes.
And if you're over 1.0, you're
Hmm.
doing well. Okay, that means you are generating more cash than your net income. All right,
Hmm.
that generated, right? So that's the number I like to look at. But
Yep.
I think yeah, it was interesting when I was a CFO of Jake Break working for George Koenigsegger in our burn.
Uh-huh.
The Rails brothers, who the founders of the multi-billionaires that are still running Danaher,
Yeah.
um, they heard all these great things about Jake Break, but our profits were getting killed from an accounting perspective.
Ooh.
And the reason is because we were taking down inventory. We were not using absorption accounting and capitalizing our cost into inventory. So the way the accounting equation works is if you don't put back the inventory that you're taking out, you can, for a period of time, you can have a negative,
Shortage.
negative fixed overhead absorption variance hit to your P&L. Okay,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
your profit and loss statement when I say
Yep.
P&L. And that simply, Griselda, is just an accounting thing. Okay. So the Rails brothers came down. They want to see, both of them came down and they wanted to see, hey, what's going
Mm-hmm.
on? I want to find out what's going on here because you guys telling us all this great stuff you're doing.
Yeah.
And we were. And so I had to present to them, right? And I'm in my early 30s, like as CFO,
Uh-huh.
which I should never have been that
Woo!
early, but I was. And and I showed them the cash flow statement.
Perfect.
I said, guys, these accounting profits that you guys report onto Wall Street, the EPS, all that, that has all kinds of crap in it. It has reserves in it. It has all kinds of charges in it.
Yeah.
This is what really matters here is cash. We're taking inventory down, and we're freeing up cash flow. That's what, and I showed them the whole statement, how it all works.
Yes.
It was a 20-minute meeting. They were done. They said, good enough for us. They got up and they left, did a plant tour, and that was it. Got back on their jet and left and went home. And so that's the thing a lot of CFOs don't know how to do. They don't know
Right.
how to really talk true. If you're an entrepreneur and you are Griselda, and you have other businesses, and cash is key.
Cash is king.
Okay.
You got it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The first thing I look at when I got my accounting set up, 52 P&Ls a year, 52 statements a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, every week, and I don't do any of it, by the way. I have an outside. I don't add value
Okay.
doing accounting for
No,
me.
no, no time for
I know
that.
I
You
could
got
do
to
it. Okay,
do right.
but cash is key, and that's really the driver. If you can drive cash, that's the real, true, profitability. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, by the way, this is why I want to just do some workshops into 2025 because we
Mhm.
hear that repeatedly, right? And obviously letting us know cash is king. And
Mhm.
then the free cash flow as a percent of net income.
Mhm.
Easier said than done, Mark. And you know
It
that
is.
quite well, right? Because
Yep.
leaders and powers above are so used to the standard gap principles and all this. It's like forces going against you while you feel like you're trying to do the right thing. And you're like, how do I educate everybody to make sure that we are indeed doing the right thing and calculating it and showing it on the books, right? But even that simple metric, right? Free cash flow, percent of net income, go ahead. There's like a lesson there. There's like what is in the P&L? What should it be? What's the, exactly in that bottom line? But a lot of people don't understand that is what I find, right? They really don't truly understand P&L and
No,
balance sheet.
the other problem too, Griselda, is
Mhm.
when their compensation isn't tied to something like that, and it's tied
Yeah,
to these accounting measures that
right.
cause you to do the wrong thing. That's where you run into problems. Okay, because
Yes,
because we haven't recalibrated our short-term compensation systems
right.
to reflect
Hmm.
functional, not dysfunctional behaviors.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, good. Thanks for sharing that. There's another topic that I pulled out of there, but I'm going to hold it because I want to go to this next question. And really, it's the state of our economy as it relates to U.S. manufacturing.
Yep.
Back in the early '90s, '80s, '90s, it felt like it was thriving. Right, there was a lot of skilled trades. There was a lot of manufacturing. Companies were globalizing significantly for cost reasons and many things. But what do you think is the state of our economy now? Where are we headed with
Well, our
respect to the?
economy is a mess right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
and why is it a mess? We've inflated our currency
Yeah.
by quote unquote printing money, the Federal
Yep.
Reserve.
Hmm.
And if you really understand how the Federal Reserve works, there is like zero incentive
No incentive.
for the Federal Reserve, which, by the way, are 12 independent corporations. They are not, the Federal Reserve System is not a government agency, it's
Hmm.
independent. Yeah, the president appoints the board of directors or one board member every cycle or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're not accountable to the government. Matter of fact, Congress can't even get a view of their expenses.
Yeah.
And the Federal Reserve has the way it's set up. They have absolutely zero incentive to stabilize the economy,
Realize.
which is, by the way, their charter. Okay.
Mhm.
If you look back at all of the economic calamities we had, including the Great Depression, the 1929 stock
Yep.
uh, crash,
Hmm.
2008,
Yep.
the late 80s, we had one. We had the Carter years. These are all, you can lay blame at the feet of the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government for the great appetite for spending.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unconstitutional spending, by the way.
Hmm.
But, if you think about what really is the definition of inflation, whenever you have more of anything, and this includes money in the
Yep.
money supply, it includes cars, it includes tomatoes, baseball cards, I don't care what,
Yes.
housing, the price is going to go down when there's more of something.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, typically, you supply and demand curve.
Supply and demand, basic
Right.
principles, right?
Yep. And when you look at money, the money supply, it's hard for people to put their arms around it because you can't see it. They don't even know it's there. Okay. There's a
Hmm.
money supply. There's an inventory of money out there.
Yes.
Okay, in the world of our currency, and whenever we add trillions to that, we are deflating that um,
Currency.
causing inflation and deflating the currency. Okay.
Right. Hmm.
So, your $10,000 you had on January 1st, if you have 10% inflation, it can only buy $9,000 worth of stuff in December, right?
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
and it's the worst tax ever on the American public. It's the worst
Yeah.
tax.
Yeah.
Now, so we've inflated the currency. Um, and what ends up happening is governments then try to go in and quell inflation. So what did the Fed do? They went in and they increased interest rates
Yep.
to like over 7%. Took so many people out of the housing market, especially young people, right?
Yeah.
Because they couldn't get mortgages. Okay.
Hmm.
I mean, going from 2.8% when Trump left office to 7% is a real big deal on your
Real big.
monthly payment. Okay.
Hmm.
So it just took all these people out of the housing market. Okay. I know I have relatives right now, master's degree, and the wife has a bachelor's, and they can't get out of a one-room apartment. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, so,
Um,
um, so the so when the Fed raises interest rates in terms of quelling inflation that they created, okay,
yep.
it's kind of like beating up your dog and then wanting to get credit for taking him to the vet. You're the one that hurt the dog,
I know.
okay? You know,
Hmm.
so so the what has to happen is there's going to be a recession,
Hmm.
and hopefully Trump's policies will end up, offsetting some of that.
Hmm.
But there'll be recessionary forces, and we're starting to see it already. 'Cause I don't think we're getting a clear data of what's really going on.
Not yet,
And a
at least.
recession is 2 quarters in a row of negative GDP. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, but you have to let the recession take its course. It's like a hangover. You have to kind of just go through it.
Hmm.
And yeah, you can cut taxes and try to stimulate the economy that way, but just let it be and don't, and the Fed just got to back off and let Adam Smith's invisible hand just kind of
Let it.
work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the economy's in a tough spot right now, but I think I've already seen it with this last election. Um, People are breathing a sigh of relief,
They are.
and they're starting to open up their pocketbooks a little bit more,
Hmm.
from what I could see. So that's all subjective on my end,
Hmm.
but the data will end up being the
Yeah.
true.
It's all about the data, right? It's all about the
Right,
data,
right.
and time
So
will tell,
so
and we'll see
yeah,
what 2025 brings.
but I had a chance to have lunch with Art Laffer, okay, who's supply side economics, the Laffer curve,
Hmm.
and he first said, Trump is a free trader. What businessman wouldn't be a free trader? But he
Right.
uses tariffs to negotiate, um, which I think is the right thing to do, although it's not constitutional, by the way, because Congress should only set tariffs. But anyway, let's leave that aside. Um, but President Trump, he said he is even better than Reagan, the best economic president that he's ever seen in his lifetime. And
Wow.
Art Laffer's in his 80s, okay?
Hmm.
And and so no U.S. businesses, when he reduced the corporate tax rate to 21%, had left the United States since then. They have not relocated out
Not
of the United
relocated.
States.
Hmm.
Okay. So he's keeping jobs here. He's keeping work here, and hopefully that will continue. But it's going to be a tough couple of years. I'll tell you right now, it's going to be a tough couple of years.
Yeah, we'll see.
So
We'll see.
yeah,
We'll see how we can, help in that endeavor, but there's many, many
right.
things that we can do. So, switching topics on that, back to this is about journeys of excellence. Obviously, you've had a great ride. We've all learned from you. You continue to impact businesses and individuals out there. What would you say is your most impactful accomplishment
Hmm.
to date so far? I'm sure there's
It's not my
many more
golf.
to come.
It's not my golf game. Uh,
Yeah, no.
it's my it,
I don't know if
it's
you
my
want to share
family.
your handicap or not, but I mean, we're on a podcast. People will
No, you
know.
can't count that. You can't count that high. Okay, so no.
Okay. All right. Hey,
Actually, my best accomplishment is my family. That's it. I
absolutely.
mean, you know, Diane and I have been married for 44 years,
Power to
and
you. That's amazing. It's a beautiful
she's
thing.
a luck. She's the most fortunate girl in the world. And
And so are you, my man.
no, I lucked out on this deal. Okay, there's no, let's not kid each other.
I know you said that before.
Uh, yeah, yeah, and but we met when we were 19,
Hmm.
and we dated, we and engaged for 4 years. We got married at 23, so here I
Hmm.
am at 68. But yeah,
Yeah.
we've been married 44 years. This June will be 45, and we had two boys, and they both got accounting degrees,
Oh,
went to CPA
wonderful.
firms, and they both decided to. And I've got three grandchildren, wonderful grandchildren.
Hmm.
Um, Two boys, and the middle one's a girl who's got such a sarcastic personality, and I don't know where she got that from.
I
Okay.
wonder where that came
Yeah.
from. Who knows? We
Well, it's
will
funny. I
investigate.
told her, I said, Charlotte, at your wedding, I'm going to get the microphone. I'm going to tell them this story. She
What
says to me,
story?
well, just whatever the story was at the time.
Okay.
And I'm going to get the microphone. I'm going to tell them all about this. She says, what makes you think you're going to be invited?
Oh, there you go. Grandpa may not be at the wedding.
And then I looked at her and said, I don't, this is a relationship we have anyway. We kid each other.
Wonderful.
I said,
Beautiful.
I said, uh, no big deal. I said, ain't nobody's going to want to marry you anyway. It's not going to be her wedding. Then she slaps me. And, but we have a lot of fun, but they're great kids. They're great, great, great kids. And so that's my biggest concern. So my two boys left CPA firms to go join the Army
The
and in
army.
the infantry. They
Yes.
wanted to fight. They didn't want to become commissioned officers,
Mm-hmm.
even though the Army wanted them to. They were non-commissioned officers. They fought in the infantry.
Mm-hmm.
Steve fought in Iraq first. He went to go replace somebody who got killed in
Yeah.
Ramadi. And then both Scott and Stephen were deployed to Afghanistan. And Stephen, at the end of 25, he's a younger one. He didn't come back. We lost him over there. So,
Yeah, I know. You've mentioned
yep,
your
yep.
Gold Star father, right?
Oh,
And
sorry. Yep,
my
yep.
sincere condolences. But he was your accomplishment, right? I mean, you made him into the man that he was to make his choices, and you were in his heart, both of yours.
Yeah. No, no, he was a amazing person, a natural leader, a
Mhm.
natural leader. The stories I hear about, after he died, I heard all these stories. It's like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me.
Wow.
You know, he risked his life to save others, and this time it didn't work. So,
Yeah.
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 So,
Sorry to hear that, but yeah, I read your poems, I hear your stories, and I read about it, and sincere condolences. But we continue to learn through your eyes of your stories and your family. So.
but you talked about resilience, and you got a resilient story yourself, and at least one. Uh, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna go into a hole and die, or are you gonna pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and finish the work that God gave you,
Mhm.
to do?
Mhm. Right.
Because I really do believe my purpose here is to teach others,
Yes.
and all the gifts I have, Griselda, the experiences with the Japanese and Lean and DBS
Right.
and all that. God gave me kind of half a brain. He didn't give me golf skills, but he get everything he gave me and everybody I met and the places he put me into
Yes.
at the right time. I refused a job with George Conasaker in 1987, and he came back after me.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
I'm sitting there saying, what would I've done if, what would where I'd be now if I didn't? First, I wouldn't be on this podcast. Okay,
If
I
you
don't.
hadn't said yes back then, right?
But he came back after me, and they had to make some changes to the structure I didn't like. But anyway, long story short, but all these things that I had the opportunity to do, the people I've met, even you, and
Hmm.
the experiences and all
Yes,
that are all gifts to me, and they're
they're
on
good.
loan.
Yes,
They're
absolutely.
not me. They're not me.
Yeah.
You know. And
Someone
and
above watching over us. But yes, they're gifts, they're
well, yeah,
blessings,
I'm
right?
a vessel. The gifts were given to me, and like you got to go use those gifts to help other people. I do an incredible amount of work with veterans, especially. I have an organization called Brave, BRAVE.
Yeah,
It's business reviews and advisors for veteran entrepreneurs. I help them start businesses. I help them
great.
write resumes. I've done resume writing over at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Help a lot of veterans start businesses. I had one lady tell me she was a veteran, and she said, "Mark, I'd be in the gutter. I'd probably be dead right now if you didn't help me with my business." You know.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, and it all starts with family, like you say, but you're right, right? There's many crossroads, right? Choices that we make throughout life, right? And like you're
Yep.
right, saying no here and there. But things happen for a reason. And you know, obviously they're challenging emotionally many times, especially,
Yeah.
losing a loved one. But someone needed them upstairs for a reason, and so we need to
Yep.
take that to what do I learn from it, and what do I teach others from it, right? How do I move
Yeah.
forward? You have an amazing family
Well,
that is
look,
still learning from you.
I'm not the only one that has grief. My grief's no different than anybody else's.
Yeah.
Everybody says, "Oh my God," everybody has grief in their life. That's part of the human condition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I don't put my grief losing Steven above anybody else's. I mean, I remember losing my dog in fourth grade. I
Hmm.
was devastated, and for 3 days I cried in school. The teacher had to call home and say, "What's wrong? What's wrong with Mark? He's crying in school." 3 days, and grief is grief, and we're all going to have grief.
Yes.
We all had grief, and it's
Hmm.
not going to change. And that's just. But one of the poems I wrote about grief, which I can send you, says I personalize grief, and uh, we've been kicking its ass throughout human existence.
And making it stronger for ourselves, right? I
We're
mean,
still here. We're
yeah,
still
we're
here.
still here. We're resilient.
Yeah.
We become powerful because we do grieve. And it is a notion of we have to allow ourselves to grieve, right? Some people are like, oh no, I'm strong. I lost a loved one, and they don't grieve at the time. I have seen some serious mental health issues come later on in life, right? Personally, within my immediate family, I'm like, oh my goodness. And the doctor, all he could pin it down is like, Griselda, you lost your father 6 years ago. Grief is happening now. It had to happen. It just didn't take place back then, right? So a lot to talk about that. But power to you. So your most impactful accomplishment is your family who has made you who you are. Kudos to that.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. My family is my, best
Yes,
accomplishment. So,
absolutely. Now, Lean is a trilogy. So I read this cool book, and I
hmm.
definitely agree with that concept. I don't think many people out there either know it or really genuinely understand it. Can you tell us about why you think Lean is a trilogy, and what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I called it the Lean Trilogy because, matter of fact, the white paper, you can get all these white papers I have on my website, leanhorizons.com. You can download them for free.
Great.
Um, but it's in my book as well. I think I talked about it in the book.
Hmm.
The trilogy to me, Griselda, is everybody, you hear a lot of people say the customer's number one, uh, employees are number one, and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
um, my view is this: the three major stakeholders, and there's others, by the way,
Hmm.
but the employees, customers, and shareholders.
Yep.
Okay, or owners. Okay,
Hmm.
um, they are your three major stakeholders. Now, yeah, you got the environment, you got the community, you got society, you got all that.
Yeah.
But those three, your supply base is a stakeholder, but those three, employees, customers, shareholders,
Yes.
you cannot have a zero-sum game where one wins over somebody else.
No.
You have to have all three of those constituencies win.
Red. Yep.
And And if they don't, it's not going to work long term. It might work short term, but not long term.
Right.
So employees got to win, customers got to win, and so obviously shareholders. And we all think we know what each one of those groups wants, but we never have asked. And I got burned
Yes.
on that. I think I told you the story last night that, when I had Hino Motors, I was 100% on time delivery, zero
Hmm.
quality problems to
Right.
their request date, 100% on time from Connecticut
Yep.
to Hino City, Japan. My first trip over there, I thought they were going to throw a big party for me. And I was number 106 out of 110 on their list of
Um, hmm.
uh, hierarchy. And why was I 106? Because the label that we put on with our hand on the upper left right hand corner of the box
Hmm.
was done by hand, and it wasn't always in exactly the same spot.
Ah,
And that got me down to
quality
106.
issues. Mhm.
Well, and I'm dummy me, I'm young, and I think, you guys are nuts. It's like that's not form, fit, or function, you know? No, Deluzio son, you don't understand. If you cannot guarantee the quality outside the box, how can you guarantee the quality inside the box?
Inside.
Even though I had 100% on time quality and everything, 100%
Yeah.
quality, no warranty, no internal rejects, nothing. They didn't care. And
The
what they were,
visual tells a story to them, right? That's what it
well,
was.
they say, you're sloppy. And what they were
Hmm.
doing? They were using the label just to challenge my mindset.
Mm.
That's what they were doing. They were saying, hey, Deluzio son, you're sloppy. You're
Ah,
just putting this label on and you don't have any standard as to how you put that label on.
wow.
I'm like, it's on the upper right hand corner every time. Yeah, yeah, no, no, no.
Like
It's an
this,
eighth
like
of an inch
that.
down. It's a quarter of an inch down. It's a little bit over to the left. It's
Yeah.
not always in the same spot. And, that's where I really learned, Griselda, that we very rarely ask what the customer wants.
Yes.
Really understand. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, come on, on time delivery, lead time, quality. We all know you have to be a
Mhm.
genius to figure that out. But what do they really want? What does
Exactly.
a shareholder really want with your company? Do they want just great stock returns? Sure, they do. But we know that. Okay, so check that box off. But what
Hmm.
about things like they want you to be environmentally friendly as a company or whatever it could
Whatever
be,
it
right?
is, right? Something's important to them, to their
And
mission.
employees are the same way. The employees are the same way. And do we really know what employees want? And there was one client who moved their plant to Mexico because they said they couldn't get labor. And I said, well, wait a minute, you guys had a 40% attrition rate. It's
Yeah.
not that you couldn't get labor, you couldn't keep labor.
Keep it.
And you never really went and found out why.
Hmm.
Okay. So, do we really, really, really know what these clients, I mean, what these stakeholder groups want?
Right. Hmm. And
My experience is that most do not really,
most
really,
do not.
really.
Yeah. And we talk about the power of Gemba, meaning go to your customer and find out and have the discussion as to why are they asking for that specific requirement, right? Maybe it's a spec in a product, whatever. But it is understanding the why behind what they're asking that really enables you to bring that back saying, oh, okay, I know why they need that now. And you design the line or their product or whatever you're doing for them in that best way that they may not even know, right? You might even improve their requirement. Now, employees, you mentioned, part of your trilogy is employees.
Mhm.
Don't you think many, many companies just kind of blanket assume employees want one thing? They generalize.
Yeah.
All employees or most employees want X, right? Whatever money or whatever it is that they assume. I have learned differently, haven't you? We're all
No
different.
question. No question.
Different.
Yeah, even from region to region, like I think I gave the example the other day where we had a plant in Tennessee,
Yeah.
and when it was fishing season, they wanted out at 3 o'clock and they wanted to go fishing. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with that, but our plant in Connecticut, if they could have worked 90 hours a day, they would have because they just loved the overtime. You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
just different culture, different and people would ask me at Danaher, what's Danaher's culture like? I don't know. Which of the 200 plants do you want to talk about? You know,
Yeah.
and oh yeah, by the way, even within the plant, the culture is different. Okay,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and so but what we did insist on though was that we were consistent on the principles.
Right.
That was the one thing that held DBS together was the
The
principles. Everyone says
principle.
it's the tools. No, it's not the tools. You gotta be good at the tools. Don't get me wrong. It's the
Right.
principles, and everybody wants to start with the tools, but
Mm-hmm.
they never start with the principles, right?
Yeah.
And so, but you're right. Employees, we think we know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the other thing I'll say to you is if you have all of these posters and values and all these slogans and all that, all these sayings about we solve problems at the lowest possible level in the company. Our employees are our greatest asset. We believe in career development. Customers number one. But you don't have a process to back up these notions
Those
in
claims,
terms
yeah.
of PDCA, then
Right.
all of these things are all they are is slogans.
Absolutely. And
Okay?
overly used slogans, don't you think? Plaster
Overuse.
all over the wall in the lobby area, and then you have a meeting with them and you really find them like, what did you just call your employees? Or why did you make that comment? And
Right.
it blows your mind. I'm like, I don't think you really meant that respect for people sign I saw at the entrance.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Hmm.
it looks good though to the unknowing.
Yeah,
But the employee, that's
absolutely.
the other thing too. You put these posters up, the employees know immediately if it's BS or not. Okay,
Oh, absolutely.
you can't
Yeah.
fool them.
Yeah.
And I was with a multi-billion dollar C-suite CEO and his C-suite,
Hmm.
a multi-billion dollar company, doing a lean boot camp, and I started talking about this, and I
Yeah.
said, do you guys believe in career development? Oh yeah, yeah, we do career development. Yeah, really? I said, do you have a career development process? Silence.
Ooh.
Okay, then how many people here have a career development plan?
Hmm.
Silence. I
Wow.
said, then all that is about career development is a slogan.
Yes.
All it is. You don't have a process.
Nope.
And,
Hmm.
so
Yep. Absolutely. All right, so a couple more questions, and we're gonna go into a quick, game. I'll call it a game. Getting to know Mark
sure.
game. Yeah. But what in your business or career life gives you the most satisfaction?
When I get an email on LinkedIn or whatever
Mm-hmm.
that says, "Hey, Mark, I worked with you 8 years ago, and you really changed my life. If it wasn't
Ah,
for you, blah 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 blah." Right?
yes.
And sometimes I don't even remember who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
Yeah.
by the way, globally around the world.
Right.
Okay. And you really made a difference in my life. I would not be in this position right now if it wasn't for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what really turns me on. Yep.
Nice. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. When you've made a difference to that one person, and I know in your
Yep.
case, you multiply that by hundreds and thousands, and people are watching, right? Everything you say, this
Yep.
podcast, right? Everything you
Yep.
do, people are watching, and it's like a constant interview. But like you say, straight true to your values, your moral values, your
That's
personal
right.
values, but also your principles, right? You're a lean zealot. You're, lean pioneer of DBS. Stay true to the basics and the values. Good things happen. Great things happen.
Well, I think the other thing to think about too here,
Mm-hmm.
Griselda, and I think about this a lot, is, and this may be a little morbid, but
Mm-hmm.
at your funeral, what are people
Yeah.
going to say about you? Are
Yeah.
they going to say, boy, he was the greatest lean accounting guy, or he was the greatest DBS guy? Boy, he was a great lean guy. He really knew how to do one piece flow. No, they're
Right.
not.
No.
They talk about what kind of friend were you?
Yes.
How you help people.
Right.
I would probably argue 60 or 70% of my time is just doing free stuff for people and helping them,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
Um, was he a good father? Was he a good husband? That kind of thing.
Right.
And that's
Mhm.
what they're going to talk about. They're not going to talk
Yep.
about any of this stuff that we spend all of our time on.
No.
They're
Hmm.
really not going to talk about that. Matter of fact, half of them don't even know what it is anyway.
I
So,
know.
you
Profitability,
know,
productivity, all that will be like, phew. It's going to be the
yeah,
one thing that I get told, and from around the world, friends in India and China and other places, is like, you know, I call you one of my greatest leaders, and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Tell me why. Simple, and people think it's cheesy, but because you cared. Simple as that. Because I cared
hmm
about their career, their
hmm
development, their site, their business. And with that, we accomplished great things like yourself.
that's the key
Yep.
right there.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely. So, last question, and then we're going to go into that game. Any
Okay.
challenges that you had to overcome? Obviously, there's ups and downs in everyone's journey. Any challenges or one most, impactful challenge that you would like to share with us that we can all learn from that you had to
There's
overcome?
several. So, first of all, losing my son was a big challenge because I almost zoned out and didn't do anything for the rest of my life, and
Yeah.
until I, started putting my faith in my God to say, He's going to take care of me, right?
Right. Yes.
Um, but I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in college, I went to Central Connecticut State University,
Mm-hmm.
state school,
Yep.
and it's all I could afford at the time. I was the first one to go to college in my family. I got up at 5 a.m. to work at
Mm-hmm.
UPS,
Mm-hmm.
and then went to school in the afternoon and did it every day. Worked
Yep.
during the summers, everything else,
Mm-hmm.
and put my way through school.
Okay.
Um, and worked hard and all that. Learned my ethic from my father, who fought at the Battle of Iwo Jima in World War II. He was a tool and
Oh.
die guy. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
so when I was in a finance class, and there were my buddies, and
Mm-hmm.
the professor said, you guys really aren't going to get the big jobs because those are all going to go to the Ivy League guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you guys are going for the state school, and nobody's going to hire you in the top C-suite and all this stuff, right? And he demoralized the class.
Of course.
And we got out in the hallway after the class, and I'm pissed off. Okay,
Anybody would.
and
Absolutely.
all my other friends were like demoted. They're just down, right? I said, guys, use that as fuel,
Power.
and show him that he's
Mm-hmm.
wrong. And
Yes.
by the way, if he's so freaking brilliant, how come he's not teaching at Harvard?
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
So, and by the way, I thought it was a good school. I thought we did, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
I got two degrees from there, and then I got my MBA at another school,
Mm-hmm.
private school, but University of Harvard. But anyway, so when I made corporate officer, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like 30, 34, 35, something like
Young.
that,
Mm-hmm.
I called them up.
There you go.
You're still teaching part-time at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got his voicemail. I called him 3 or 4 times. He never called me back. But on the voicemail, I left this message. I said, "Hey, this is Mark Deluzio. You probably don't remember me. I had you for finance,
Ah.
uh, whenever, blah, 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 blah. And I just want to thank you for giving me the motivation by telling me that I cannot ever make the C-suite in a major corporation." Okay.
Yes.
And I just
Mm-hmm.
want to thank you for giving me that motivation by telling me that I couldn't do it,
Right.
because it was you that really was part of my fuel, if you will, to
Mm-hmm.
pursue and do what I did. And
Yes.
that's true. I thought about that guy a lot over the years.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he never called me back. But that could have been a big setback, right? And now I'm actually being hired by Ivy League CEOs to be
Yeah. Their
their counsel,
consultant,
right?
consult, their
You know,
coach. Come help.
and their coach, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, sure. Are you going to have a better opportunity to get into the upper echelons if you go to an Ivy League school? Absolutely. You went to Stanford, right? And
Absolutely,
which
but
is
it
a
doesn't
phenomenal
it doesn't
school.
always matter, right? I'm blessed that I did. I learned a ton, but I know many people that graduated in the same class that have made different choices. And
Yep.
they lack partly the fire in the belly, but it's
Yep.
not just the degree. It's your persona, it's your desire, it's your ganas. Grit and ganas, I call it. It's your grit and ganas of what are you gonna do with could be a degree, fine. But it could also just be the experience that you had, right? Someone lit a
Yeah,
fire in your belly, and with that,
that's right.
you excelled to no end.
And by the way, I'm not naive enough to say that anybody could be a professional baseball player. Okay. I mean, I could have if I could hit. Defensively, I was really good.
Uh-huh.
I played at the major league level defensively, but
Okay.
not offensively. I couldn't do it. And a pro
Right.
told me that once, um, um, when I played at Fenway Park, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not naive enough to say that you could be anything you want to be. Now, that's not really true because, look, how many 5'10" Italian guys do you see in the NBA? It ain't
There
gonna
you
work, okay? Italians don't do basketball, all right?
Right, right,
But so I understand that, okay?
right.
But what I'm trying to say is, you can't. You got to believe in yourself first, and
Yes.
you may not make the NBA. You may not make the professional golf circuit. Okay, fine. But if you don't try, you're going to live the rest of your life sitting there saying,
What
Man,
if?
what if I did this? What if I did that? Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's my thing there. But
Great message. Yeah. We're,
yeah,
look in the mirror, and that's who's making all the right choices for ourselves. And whenever people say no, I actually got to a point where we welcome that. Where when things got challenging and I was told no, I was like, awesome. Now let's show the way, right? And let's lead a group of people to
you're stubborn.
great things.
You're
Stubborn,
stubborn.
like you're not stubborn. Stubborn with resilience, but in a positive way, right? Just to show I'm like,
In a good way. In a good way.
absolutely. It's
Abs-
like, let's go show the impact that we could have. Wonderful. Okay. So a little bit of fun, rapid fire questions, getting to know Mark. So you've done this game before. You kind of don't think too much, just kind of spit one out, one or the other.
I don't know if I've
And
done this. I don't even know what the game is. What's the game?
it is rapid fire questions, this or that.
Oh,
This
I
or
have to
that.
pick something.
You have to
Of
pick
two
this or
choices.
that. I'm going to give you two options, and you can't
Got
think
it.
about it too much. Just whatever comes to your mind, that's the one you're going to choose.
Can I just say single malt scotch on every one of them?
Sure, you can do that. There's one question that relates to that. So I know what your answer is going to be on that one. But all
Okay.
right. So, ready? Here we go. I'm going to start off easy with early bird or night owl?
Night owl. I'm
Night owl.
both. I'm both.
Oh, both. Okay.
I'm
I
really
guess.
both. Yeah, yeah.
All
yeah.
right. He says both. It wasn't an option, but that's okay. Both it is.
Okay.
Cash or credit?
Credit.
Credit. Red or blue?
Blue.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Beer or cocktails?
Cocktail.
Quality or speed?
Quality.
Read by the fire or bar night with friends?
Oh, bar night. No question.
No question there. Ice cream or chips and salsa?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. Little twist here. Two questions. Favorite food?
Lobster.
Lobster. Look at that. All right. And the last question. If you, Mark Deluzio, could choose any superpower, what would that be and why?
I'd love to be able to fly.
Ah, fly. What would you do with your
You
superpower
know,
of flight?
I look at airplanes. I'm fascinated. I understand from a layman's perspective the physics of why a plane flies. Okay.
Yeah.
And all the lifts and all that stuff.
PV equals
But when
NRT.
I,
A little too much, but
yeah. Well, when I look at an airplane, though, I really, Diane will, my wife will say, "What are you doing?" I'm watching an airplane fly over my head, and I'm amazed at flight. I'm amazed that we can get this big hunk of metal up there, and they're not crashing every day.
I know.
Okay.
Isn't that crazy?
And that's the other part that amazes me because I do know how screwed up manufacturing is in general. And
Yeah.
the fact that those things aren't falling out of the sky every other day is amazing to
It's
me.
amazing.
That's amazing to me. Okay.
I know. Mhm.
So if we can do that with an airplane and a jet engine, then don't tell me that you can't make this pen with 100% quality. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I did some math. I think I put it in my book that, or one of the papers I wrote, that if the airlines flew at 6 sigma, there'd be a crash somewhere in the world every 3 days.
Ah, yes.
I did the math on that. Okay. Actually less than 3 days,
Mhm.
but so 6 sigma is no good in that regard. And
Yeah. Mhm.
3.4 parts per million, right?
Yeah.
And but flying to me is just I've flown all around the world over 3 million miles. I got to fly in the Concorde. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
was kind of cool.
Nice.
And
I love
everybody
that
asked me all
airport.
these. Well, the Concorde, it was the Air France one, and New York, Paris to New York in like 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
But flew at Mach 2. So here are the questions I get. What was it like flying at Mach 2? I don't know. What's it like flying at 500 miles an hour in a 737? It's all relative, right?
Yeah.
And then they say, well, what happened when you broke the sound barrier? What did that sound like? We were going faster than sound. I didn't hear it. Those are the questions I get. So
You go.
the most amazing part of the Concorde, besides the sky, we're at 60,000 feet and the sky was dark blue during the day,
Wow. Beautiful.
was that the people that were on the plane.
Oh,
The
look at
people
that.
on the plane were just incredibly interesting, and most of them self-important. They were like, it's like I'm thinking if you were really that important, you'd have your own jet, but
Right. Here we
the
are.
people watching, I love to watch people. Okay, so
Mhm.
the people watching on that flight was just incredible. So
Absolutely. Well, the
yeah,
power of flight. Awesome, because there's a lot more of that coming, right? Right now we have airplanes, but a lot of, items that will be in the skies in the near future is my
yeah,
prediction. It's a matter of time. And
yeah.
obviously all these brilliant scientists will figure out how do we make use of all that awesome space up there? Since
That's right. Yeah,
we'll
no, that's
see.
right.
We
Yeah,
shall
I'm
see.
sure Elon Musk will have something to say about
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure he is.
that.
Yeah. All right. Any last words, Mark, before we wrap up?
No, I really appreciate you having me on, and you're going to be on mine tomorrow.
I
I
sure
think
am. I'm
tomorrow,
looking
right?
forward to it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and no, I appreciate this, and I think I think the whole thing about what we do, and we're just trying to make the world better, trying to make people's lives better. I remember Nakao telling me that the number one job of an engineer is to make the operator's job easier.
There you
And
go.
that truly is the respect for people,
Yep.
because when
That
you
hits.
think about making somebody want to come to work,
Hmm.
and I actually had a boss one time. They said, "Hey, your people came in. We had a luncheon learn, and we're a union shop. They really like working for you."
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the problem? Well,
Right.
they're union. That's why I have the kind of relationship with them.
Nope.
What do
You
you want me
do.
to do? Go out and piss them? You want me to go out and piss them off? I could do that, just like you're pissing
No,
me
no.
off. Okay.
You take care of them and they deliver. That's what I
I mean,
have
I
found over and
negotiated two of
over.
their contracts, and
Yeah.
and we have a lot of fun every day. The
Yes.
ladies thought I were their son. They brought in donuts for me and cookies,
Mm-hmm.
and we had pet names for each other. And we all kidded around, and I asked for their ideas. And this is a UAW shop, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And we had a blast. They loved coming to work.
Yeah.
And but this leader said, yeah, especially the ladies, they just love working for you. Yeah, Mark, you can't have that kind of relationship.
Yes,
And
you
by the
can.
way, our metrics were the best in history in that
Yes.
company. I
Drives
said,
productivity. You know
is
it.
there problems with any of the metrics? No, 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 that's really good. Okay, well, I'm going to go out and piss them off. So I got the message. No, 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 that's what I'm saying. What are you saying?
It doesn't matter what they say, Mark. It's what you are showing by example. That's what matters and that's what works. So thank you so much for sharing your nuggets of wisdom. Greatly enjoyed learning from you. And thank you for being on the show.
And I look forward to you being on my show tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lean 911. Okay.
Absolutely.